Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Esther and this is Esther's Eden. I thought tonight would be a really great night to show you guys how I make elderberry syrup. Now, I've been making elderberry syrup for a really long time for my family and also for our friends. And I thought tonight I would share with you guys my secret trick on how I save time making it. So I already have a big batch going behind me, but I thought I have a special batch I need to make for a friend, and so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to show you guys on making a small batch. So yeah, let's get into it. So here I have these are fresh frozen elderberries. We harvest them here in late September, early October. About that time we wait, and these are our local ones that we have here in North Idaho are these nice pretty blue ones. They have the white powder coating on them, but elderberries also come in other colors like black and red. Now, since they're not in season right now, but it's still very beneficial for you to be using elderberry syrup, I thought I would also mention you can use this is dried elderberry powder, but they also come in whole dried berries. And the only difference is that this has a different flavor when you are making syrup, and I think that's because most of the elderberry powder that I've seen on the market is actually the dried black elderberries. But it doesn't matter, you can use either or. As soon as I run out of frozen elderberries, I will switch over to using the dried. So today for this particular recipe, we're going to be using 1 cup of fresh or frozen elderberries, or a half a cup of dried if you're using dried. We're going to use 3 cups of water, 1 cup of raw honey, about half teaspoon of dried rose hips. I'm not going to be using this today, but you could also add a stick of cinnamon. And then you could also use cloves. I don't use a lot of clove, just enough to give it a little hint. And then I also already have sliced up a couple of slices of fresh ginger root, but you could also use dried ginger root, and instead of leaving it whole, you could also grate it. It's totally up to you and your preference. So let's get into my secret trick here. So I used to invite a friend over, and we would clean elderberries until we could not see straight. And the reason you want to clean them so well is because you can get cyanide poisoning from these stems and uncooked berries. Now, I'm gonna go throw these in the freezer. I'll be right back. I have heard there is actually some new information coming out on this. There is a man called the Elderberry guy, or the Elderberry man. Anyway, I think he's out of Missouri, and he hired some researchers to research whether or not that was true, and did find that with an American elderberry, you do not have to cook them. But I do not know if that also includes the blue elderberry. So as soon as I find out, I will totally link it in the description below. If you guys know the answer to that and you've seen or heard of the Elderberry man, I know he was on the Doug and Stacy channel here on YouTube. So anyway, if you have more information, I would totally love that. But for now, I am gonna just go with we need to clean it all out. So here's what it looks like when you dump it in the pan. Now, I don't take the time to clean the elderberries when we harvest them, because obviously end of September and October, a huge harvest is coming in of every kind of crop you can imagine, and I just don't have time to deal with them at that time. So you see all kinds of stems and leaves, and you just don't want those in there. A few minutes ago, actually, out of that bag that I just pulled these out of, I pulled this huge clump of stems, and you definitely don't want any of that. So let's just pretend you're like me and you're going to be using fresh or dry or frozen elderberries today. And if you do it the typical way, you literally have to just put it in your hands and pick through every single little stem. Like, you can't have any of them in there, right? So that means something even as tiny as this. Yeah, you can't even hardly see it. It's right there. And so we were picking through and going crazy, just picking gallons upon gallons of elderberry stems out. Here's the trick. You don't have to do that. Just take your elderberries, get the big stuff out, and then dump your water in. Now what's going to happen is that on the top, all of the stems and leaves and bad berries and little blossom ends, they're going to float to the top. And you can take a little tiny strainer like this and just go through. I do add a little bit of extra berries just to make up for any really lost berries doing this method. But then if you just sift it out, you get almost all the stems out. And instead of taking an hour or so to be able to do a gallon, you can just do it in like a couple seconds. So that's my secret tip. You're welcome. So I'm just gonna do that on this batch real quick. Now, you don't have to stick to the ingredients that I'm adding today. You can also add echinacea. You could add any immune supporting things like calendula to your syrup. Now, my only thing that I do very differently is that I do not cook my rose hips into it. I wait and let the syrup cool for a while, and then I add my rose hips in later so that I keep that good vitamin C in my medicine. So today we are not adding cinnamon to this batch. I'm gonna add in my 2 pieces of ginger, so this is just a single batch. Whoops, I see another stem down in there. So we are gonna strain the syrup out of the berries, so you don't have, it doesn't have to be perfect. I didn't know that. And then I am gonna add a couple of cloves. And that's the end of that. Now we're gonna just go ahead and put this on high heat and bring it to a boil. And sometimes my lids are different than most people's. They have holes in the top of it, so I just set that on kind of the top of my pan. I'm gonna put that on my big batch that I have going. We have now brought our elderberry syrup up to a boil. It's almost a boil. So once that happens, we're gonna go ahead and turn it down. So I can do it at this point, or you could wait till it's more full rolling boil, whatever, it's totally up to you. So we're just gonna turn it down to sort of a lower heat, and I'm gonna turn on my timer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Now, I don't boil mine as long as some people do. And then I'm also gonna put a lid on mine. And I thought since I was gonna be up late tonight working on videos, I should make a nice cup of herbal tea. So I have my specialized tea blend, as my niece and my children call it. They call it, well, my nieces call it Auntie Esther's specialized tea. And I thought I'd share with you these little bags. These are just little tea bags I got on Amazon, and you can buy a ton of them in a pack. And mine is nice and brown because I've used it many, many times. But then I can just rinse it without having to keep reusing or throwing away tea bags. I can make my own tea blends, and then I also don't get tea leaves in my tea, because I don't know about you, but I don't like drinking tea with tea leaves in it. So I'll show you my little tea making process here as it gets ready, but I gotta boil the kettle first. Okay, so my tea is boiling here. So I'm just gonna warm the pot up here real quick. I have a special cast iron teapot that I like to use. That's why I have 2 teapots on my counter. I like to use one of them for my black tea. You know me, an English girl. Gotta have my black tea with cream and sugar. But I do also love herbal tea. So I don't want to pour boiling water. Oh, a little tickle. Sorry about that. I don't want to pour boiling water onto my herbs, but so we'll just let it sit for just a minute. But I'll go ahead and put that in the pot. That'll be nice and cleaned out. So if you guys wanted to make your own special iced tea, really great, just a quick recipe would be 3 parts red raspberry leaf that's been dried, 1 part peppermint leaf, and then also 1 part either like nettles, or that would be stinging nettles, or you could use catnip or another kind of mint if you wanted to. You could use alfalfa in that. I use all kinds of stuff. We even use comfrey, which I realize not everybody agrees with. Sorry. Keep putting my hand in your way. It's the end of the day. I tucked my kids in. I'm just a little tired tonight, but since I was staying up to make stuff and I need to edit for a while, I thought, okay, I might as well make a couple videos too while I'm at it, right? Anyway, this is one of our favorite teas. It really is. My kids love it. In the summer, we like it iced, and then now in the winter time, I like it just warm. So, okay, I think my water's cooled down just enough, and I'm just gonna pour it into my pot over my herbs. There you go. You can see. It's only me tonight, so I don't need to make a whole pot, but. And I have like go-to cups. Like, this is my favorite cup for drinking herbal tea. It's a little bit bigger, but I don't know why. I just like, when Pier 1 was still here, fell in love with my chicken cup. And I always drink black tea out of this cup, which my husband got for me because he laughs at me when I do happy dances. I don't know. Do you have favorite cups? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Okay, so our timer just went off here for our elderberry syrup. So I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to leave the lid on it, and I'm just going to leave it on that warm burner. And what I want is for that to keep, it's not going to keep cooking, but it's going to keep steeping at a very warm temperature. And I'm just going to keep an eye on it. I want to add in some of our rose hips. Hey, my label rubbed off, so you can't tell. Anyway, these are rose hips. I will use more chalk and write on there. Anyway, but I want to add these in not when it's too hot. Sort of like our herb tea that I'm making right now. I don't want to cook those good like vitamin C and vitamins out of my syrup, and I also don't want to cook them out of my tea. So a couple of things I thought I could mention real quick if you're making an herbal tea is, number 1, make sure you cover your tea. So I have a lid on mine right here, but if you were doing it in a cup, just put like one of these little guys. If you have one of these are super cute and super fun. This one's a little dusty because I haven't used it in a while because I make a lot more tea in the winter. But you can just pop that on the top, and what that's going to do is keep all those good essential oils inside your tea so you can drink them rather than them just dissipating in the air. Another thing is that I like to steep my teas. We like ours pretty strong, so 10 to 20 minutes in my pot, but if I'm in a hurry, then 5 minutes will do. So hopefully all of that helps you. So I'm gonna let this elderberry syrup cool down for a little while. Like I said, it's gonna be I don't want it really super hot, but it needs to be warm enough to be able to extract this. So I'll probably let it sit for about 10 minutes and then I'll add these in. Okay, my tea is ready. I already have a little bit of honey in the bottom. I don't like it too sweet. There we go. I'm just gonna stir that up. It's gonna be so good. Usually I like to drink my homemade sleepy time tea, but I need to stay awake for a while longer. My 7-year-old now just turned 7. A couple days ago, we have a special birthday party thing going on for him tomorrow, so I'm trying to get as much work done today as I can so I can just enjoy him tomorrow. Perfect. Cheers. So I'm gonna give our syrup here. Oh yeah, that's still too hot, so I'm gonna give it at least another 5 or 10 minutes. It's only been about 5 minutes, and then I'll go ahead and add our rose hips. So just so you guys can see, I'm gonna go ahead and move this pan. This is the syrup, and it's still very hot. It's not, well, it's not very, very hot. It's just as hot as a warm tea would be. So I'm just gonna put in my rose hips, and I probably have about 1/2 teaspoon. I don't want too much because rose hips, when cooked, taste like ketchup. And I don't want my syrup to taste like ketchup. Now I'm just gonna return this to that warm burner, and I'm going to let it cool down until I can put my hand on the side of the pan. And after that, I will strain it out and I will add in 1 cup of honey. Now, the reason that I wait until it's that cooled is because I don't want to ruin the raw benefits of my honey. So I try to get the temperature below about 130 to somewhere under 130. It can be anywhere between 110 and 130 without killing those properties. As long as it's warm enough that you can still stir the honey in, you'll be just fine. I will show you how I strain it, and I will walk you through that process here in just a little bit, but we're gonna let it cool. It may need to cool overnight, just kind of depends on how much time I have to do it. It's totally fine. It's pretty late right now, so if it sits on my stove overnight and I can just re-warm it up just a little bit in the morning, that's okay too. But for right now, hopefully we'll get to it. We'll see. Alrighty. So it's been, since this is only a single batch, it doesn't take very long to cool. So it's already like I can keep my hand on it just fine. We don't want this to cool down too much because we do want to be able to stir our honey in. Now I am using just a regular fine colander, and then I am also using a nice piece of muslin cloth. You could also use cheesecloth. I like this because I don't get any little bits falling through, so it makes a really clean syrup. And mine is very discolored because I've used it so many times. I only use this for making elderberry syrup, and when I am done, I clean it out and then wash it really well right away. I let it dry overnight, and then I store it in a little Ziploc bag. So this is the only thing I do with this particular piece of cloth. Okay, so as you can tell, it's not too hot, so I can just go ahead and grab it already. Now I like to strain it to the point where the berries on the inside are gonna start to flake off from the cloth, and I'll show you that in just a second. Now, a lot of people, for like if you're doing jam making and things, they would say don't press this out, but this is not jam, and it doesn't matter if it's cloudy. We won't be canning this. This particular syrup is only gonna last a couple of weeks in the refrigerator. Okay, so here we go. So it's kind of flaky, and you can see I can pick the whole thing up in a ball. It's still a little warm, but I can pick the whole thing up in a ball. and that tells me that I've gotten enough moisture out of it. So I'm just gonna set that aside. This is really just for a backup. I have had it where I've been making a big batch and you know, I missed a piece of the cloth or something, and so then all the berries fall in. So I like to have just sort of a backup. It's totally not necessary. And honestly, you could just strain your berries out in that colander. I just like to get as much liquid out as possible. And if you do strain it through the colander, you will get pieces of fruit that fall into your syrup. So here's our syrup right here. It's a really beautiful red color. And I have 1 cup of honey already measured out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in. Now this is a raw local honey, and I like to add that into my syrup because that also helps with allergies, and it helps it to boost the immune system. And honestly, because I only use this cup for this, I also like to just stir it in to make sure you get all that honey out of it. I try really, really hard wherever I am making anything to have as little waste as possible. Now, I did let this cool down just a touch more than usual, so it might be a little difficult to stir my honey in, but eventually it will melt and it'll be just fine. And my honey at this point has gone a little crystallized, but I've had it for quite a while. I usually buy a nice big 5-gallon bucket at the beginning of elderberry season. So all I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna continue working this honey in to my syrup. I can't tip it too far or else I'll dump it out. And then I'm gonna get some kind of mason jar, you know, something like this. This batch that I've told you how to make tonight is going to make 1 quart of syrup. I hope you guys enjoyed making syrup with me tonight. I sure enjoyed hanging out with you. If you're enjoying these videos, I would love if you would hit the subscribe button, and if you go ahead and hit that like button, then more people can watch these videos. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you again real soon. This jar is not shelf stable. You'll need to keep it in the refrigerator. It can usually last 2 to 3 weeks. However, I have had unopened jars last for 3 to 6 months. It just depends on how much you're getting in and out of your jar. If you're pouring out of it every single day, it's not going to last as long. And then, you know, if you're making a larger batch and you want it to last a little bit longer, you can just make multiple jars and leave them in your fridge. But you will have to keep an eye out for mold and also for fermentation. If you notice mold or fermentation, then I highly suggest you just go ahead and toss that batch and start over. So thanks again for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys again